Floop and I have a very exciting video for you guys here today. We are going to be watching and reacting to the video that premiered from Bankless, in which they had the opportunity to interview Brian Armstrong and Patrick Joyce, two of the co-founders of Researchhub with the project Research Coin. They asked a lot of cool questions, and I thought this section particular was something worth paying attention to, in which they go over the bad incentive models of TradSci. You've heard of TradFi before. This is traditional science. They go over the bad incentive structures, some of the experience that they both have with this poor model, how crypto might solve it, and how specifically Researchhub might solve it. I don't know how Floop's going to be feeling today, so he might be with us the entire video. He might get up and go. Regardless, let's go ahead and watch this together. I got to turn it down to 1.25 speed so it slows down just a little bit.
Yeah, maybe I can try and do my best to recap some of the misincentives that produces misknowledge. Patrick, you were talking about just like it's more safe to try and produce positive results, as in like I have a hypothesis and I did some science and my hypothesis has been proved correct. And that is more incented than equivalent science that's trying to prove something against a hypothesis. It's just like people want confirmation bias, right? People want to say like, here's my idea, oh, and it's correct. And there's just like a natural incentive to do that kind of science rather than the inverse. And so as a result of that, maybe there's like more false positives, as we have three different theories going three different directions and they're all proven true, but they actually conflict with each other. And no one is taking the other side of that trade, for example, to put it into like finance terms. It's like maybe a market where short selling is banned. It's just like things just get perversed when you don't have the other side of that market being able to express itself. It really kind of just seems like a Moloch problem, a Moloch trap, a coordination problem, where it's just we can't actually incentivize trying to find truth, trying to find the North Star. It really seems to always boil back down to just economics at the end of the day, capital allocation. We've used capital allocation like 3, 4, 5 times so far in this episode. Is it really that simple? Is it really just boiling down to can we fix the financial incentives to fix science? Is that a reductive way to put this conversation?
I think that's one way to put it. Yeah, and Joyce, you should jump in too. But I'm a believer in free markets. I'm a believer that people allocate their own capital more carefully than they allocate someone else's capital. And so the market is this beautiful thing that it has this truth serum baked into it, which is like, if you're going to allocate capital to something, did you ultimately produce something that generated revenue that paid back? And the people who are good at it get more capital, and the people who aren't as good at it get less capital. Mm-hmm. And the minute we put that into a government institution, I think we break one of the best mechanisms ever discovered to make progress. And it's true that a lot of science, one of the arguments against this, by the way, is that there needs to be basic research, right? Which would be, how do we discover something about the cosmos or the basic laws of physics, like the Stanford Linear Accelerator, and like we need to invest in things which have no hope of immediately being commercialized. But I kind of question that premise a little bit. I think that there are things that can be commercialized even out of basic research. Now, it might take a decade or two, but there's enough private citizens with capital now who are thinking about longer time horizons like that. If you're like a basics venture firm that's just trying to invest in SaaS companies and have 3 to 5x your money in 3 to 5 years or something, maybe you're not going to invest in some of these things. But we've seen people like, Sam Altman or the Collison brothers funded this new ARC Institute, right? We're seeing private sources of capital. In Sam Altman's case, he's funding things like nuclear fusion, right? And these are in the realm of science fiction. They're research projects, but or even if you went back to whatever Elon, with Neuralink or, SpaceX, right? These are the kinds of things that would have normally been in the realm of government projects or research projects. But it turns out if you have a scientific breakthrough and you can turn it into a product, it's some of the biggest companies on the planet are defined by that. By the way, Coinbase is an example of that too, because it's based on a computer science breakthrough by Satoshi Nakamoto, right? And so it kind of comes back to the best companies are based on scientific breakthroughs. So anyway, I think there's actually a lot more room to run for private capital being allocated towards this than a lot of people think, and it can actually contribute to basic research as well.
Are you launching a token? Is it already live?
Oh, be quiet there. Did you guys catch that? He's saying that at this point in the stage with capitalism, we don't need to solely rely on governments to fund a lot of the research. We also don't need to rely on large institutions to fund the research, because we know that their motives are often perverse. They are focused solely on generating that next profit. They're looking for that scientific breakthrough that is going to give them the ability to lobby regulations, lobby Congress people into making it so that they can sell some more of their product, whatever that product is. It actually doesn't matter the field. The playbook is the same. You get researchers to research a topic, you pay them money, and it kind of gear them up for finding results from that research that is going to back whatever product that they have, so that they can then bring that research to Congress or to one of those 3-letter agencies and get it approved to hit the market. Now, that's obviously not every single institution out there, but it doesn't matter because it's happening out there. What Brian Armstrong right there was saying, that there are enough people with a lot of money, such as Sam Altman, who is the CEO of OpenAI. He got kicked out for a minute, and then an uproar happened, and he got put back in. And then also like Elon Musk with Neuralink and a lot of the stuff that he's working on right now, where it's like there is not going to be any profit that comes from that for years, if not decades. Truthfully, like, you go look at what he's trying to do with colonizing Mars. He's trying to propel humanity to become a multiplanetary species. There is no profit in that. There won't be any profit in that for a very long time, but it doesn't matter because he's got money to burn through. So one of the things that the ultra rich are doing right now, rather than just donating everything and giving it to Congress and paying their taxes, whatever you want to say, like it or not, what they're doing is starting to invest into research areas that are not super funded, don't really have huge hopes of generating a profit, but down the line could have massive breakthroughs that fundamentally shift our reality. It's one of the drawbacks or one of the criticisms of decentralized science that I'm hearing from a lot of people in the crypto community, because that means that you will have an excessive amount of failure. And the important part is conveying that message to people like you and I who don't have all that money and who might just be speculating on the results of some of this stuff, because it's easy to get sucked into something that won't generate profits for decades and think that you're going to make tons of money off of it just because the idea is there. It's a cool story. You can invest in stories, but you have to understand that most stories don't have happy endings.
Defined a lot of patterns and principles and ideas about the broken incentives inside of science. And I think listeners are already starting to kind of get a grip, an understanding for like, oh, this is a similar problem to crypto. We have similar tools here. And I think we've done a good job expressing the vibe, but I'd like to actually kind of drill down and trying to get into some of the specifics of how crypto can actually help. I think we have a lot of ideas in crypto, and we have fewer real products than we have ideas in crypto. And so maybe we can kind of drill into some of the ideas more specifically, like how can crypto and crypto incentives and the tools that we have in the crypto space, when we collide the crypto particle with a science particle, what are some of the specifics there? Like how do we actually reconstruct science? Patrick, I'll start that one with you.
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, the value, well, there are a lot of use cases that crypto can bring to science. And I think there are a bunch of Desci companies that are helping to address different aspects of this. But at Researchhub, kind of our main concern is setting up an economy where like high quality science is rewarded with economic value. And so, Ryan, I think as you mentioned earlier, kind of this like consensus mechanism of science and like how do we all agree what is valuable science? Like that's, not an easy thing to do. And Brian and I realized that like, a group of, 5 to 10 people in a room, it's impossible for them to like independently reward science in the most effective way. And so what we want to build with Researchhub is a way to iterate on a reward structure that can like in an evidence-based fashion help to compensate high quality science over time. And so this kind of takes the format of like our current product, which is a Reddit style forum where users earn the ERC20 token research coin for creating high quality content. There's like a bunch of ways this is happening currently. So like if someone shares a paper and creates like a great layman summary of that paper for other people to understand, they may earn like a tip with RSC for their efforts. We also have a bounty feature where if you need a scientific task completed, you can create a research coin bounty for other scientists to come in and help you. So I think the core innovation that we're driving towards with Researchhub is like this ability to give like the scientific user base like control over how research outputs are judged and rewarded, with the eventual goal of creating a financial system where we can compensate scientists in an evidence-based fashion for producing new knowledge, rather than being reliant on this sort of like grandfathered in proxy metric of citations.
Okay, so Patrick, I'm going to share a Researchhub here and just like to try to make sense of it. This is a screenshot. If you're watching on YouTube, you can kind of see here. So what you're doing at Researchhub, it sounds like, is are you removing the middleman? So bankless. We call ourselves bankless because we don't have to use banks for banking any longer, right? That's what crypto enables. You kind of delete the middleman. I don't know. Is this journalless? Is it, you're like no longer does a scientist have to go through this institutional journal type process? They can be journalists and they can do like bottom up, peer to peer, finding of capital, and you have created kind of a hub for a truth finding, a consensus machine on what's good science and what's not, and you're connecting the scientists to the capital in various ways. Describe this a little bit. So what I'm looking at right now is, yes, a Reddit style, I would say, upvote, downvote. It looks like a bunch of different papers across all sorts of different different categories, right? It looks like there's some biotech here. Looks like there's a physics paper, quantized inertia, a physics theory that gets rid of dark matter. That sounds absolutely fascinating. Which current maladies were actually a survival advantage? Anyway, describe a little bit what you're doing here at Researchhub and what we're looking at.
Yeah, so here's like a Reddit style feed where users can share existing scientific papers, publish new ones, or create any kind of scientific content. So this quantized inertia post up at the top here, if you click into this, this was actually shared by I guess a psychologist within our community who's really interested kind of as a hobbyist in quantum physics, as I think like a lot of people are these days. And so they came across this new kind of understanding of quantum gravity from this scientist that I actually follow on Twitter, or X, apologies. And he asked a question. So he like took some of the research coin that he had earned in the past, created a bounty, and then asked for a physicist who was more familiar with the theory to come in and explain it to him and help him understand whether it might be a viable way to like view the world through a new lens. And so, as Brian said, we're still in very early days. So, like, we're trying to play around with how we can use these new financial incentives to create like higher quality scientific content than the kind of antiquated traditional system. And so there are a bunch of ways we're going about it. But right here, I think this is a pretty interesting like mechanism for like someone who's not a physicist to allocate, relatively modest amounts of capital to another physicist to answer a question that is personally interesting to him. So yeah, let us kind of do these like sort of micro grant interactions where people can earn value for creating content or providing knowledge that others within our community perceive as valuable based on the research coin bounty that they place upon the post.
This is fascinating, Brian. I'd love your take on this and what's being built here. And you've got kind of like, I think, a crypto take and an engineer's take, right? So like you have in the programmer field, like systems like Stack Overflow. This kind of reminds me a little bit of that type of system. Also have like open source, like so much code is open source, and like science is also an open source technology. Anyway, what do you see being built here, and what's kind of the vision here?
Yeah, so the V1 of the site is really about prioritization and discovery of papers. There's 2 or 3 million papers that get published every year. A lot of the sites that people go to look at these, like Archive and BioArchive, these are really great efforts. I don't want to disparage them at all, but the websites are they feel like they were built 20 years ago. They're usually run out of these universities by a couple handful of grad students, and so they're just not modern applications that allow you to do voting and like threaded discussions and things like that. So that was the V1 of like, how do we actually just make sure, as a modern day journal, let's do the curation and discovery, prioritization of all the massive papers out there. So if you only have a few hours that week as a scientist, like to come in and check out what's going on in a certain area, you can do that more efficiently. But the product kind of quickly evolved beyond that too, because just prioritization and discovery is only one small piece of it. Okay, well, how do we get like peer reviews incentivized, right? Or people going in there, like Joyce said, to complete some kind of scientific task. Like if you have a scientific question and you want like a literature summary, which is a common task that scientists do, both in academia and inside companies, what's the current state of the research? So you can now put up bounties to have people go do that. You can have peer review completed, and people actually, kind of getting rewarded for that. Whereas in the journal system today, not only are there like big paywalls and it takes a year to get in the journal and all these kind of things, but the peer reviews are just volunteers doing it. These are like oftentimes like underpaid grad students, and anyway, actually being allowed to get paid to do peer reviews is like kind of a cool feature on its own. And so we started to add some of those features in. Now, where this is going in the future, I think it's beyond just prioritization, discovery, incentivizing peer reviews, literature summaries, bounties, things like that. It's how do we actually allow people to get funded more efficiently? How do we fix the funding pipeline? And you can see there's kind of an experiment there in the top right today where people are applying now to get some of their science projects funded or their research projects funded. That's kind of an early feature that is being beta tested today, where the community can kind of crowdsource and say, hey, we think this is really cool. We like this person's background, like whatever it is. And so we're beta testing getting research funded now. And then where I think this is going in the future is this is going to kind of be, we need to solve the translation of science. Translational science is kind of where you have a breakthrough and how does it get turned into a product and commercialized? And today, the way that happens today is super inefficient. There's these things called tech transfer offices within universities. And essentially, if you're like an entrepreneur and you want to commercialize something based on a breakthrough, you have to call up the tech transfer office at Stanford or MIT or whatever. And it's a very bespoke process. You have to like talk to these lawyers. You have to go meet them in person. You have to negotiate all these like custom legal documents. There's high legal bills. And at the end of it, you might get like a license to go try to do this thing.
The universities get a % of the cut, don't they too, Brian? Aren't they in kind of the negotiating seat in that process?
Yeah, that's right. And so that's one of the issues. A lot of the revenue goes to the university, not to the person who discovered the breakthrough. So this broken incentives issue.
As if
The
they
other
don't
issue
make
is that,
enough
like,
money
I forget the
already.
exact number. It's like 99.9% of all papers like never get commercialized into anything. And if you look at the revenue that like Stanford has generated from the tech transfer office, it's almost entirely due to like, I think Google and Genentech. It was like the vast majority of it throughout the history of the entire university. So very few things ever get commercialized out, but when they do, they're often big breakthroughs. And so one of the ideas that we had was like, how do we make it where there's like a one-click license button, on on a paper or a scientific breakthrough that someone's put out? And I don't want to go negotiate custom terms like with some lawyer. Like it's kind of like the Creative Commons license. Like if it's federally funded research, ideally it would be kind of in the Creative Commons. Anybody could go do it. But it's also, if it's somebody publishing something out of like a company or something where they want to be commercially recognized for it, maybe we can come up with like a standard, like a SAFE agreement is a standard agreement that a lot of startups get invested in now. Why don't we make like a SAFE agreement for science where it's like anybody can click this button. If you go build a product based on this innovation, I get 1% of the revenue for the next 10 years or something like that. A standard terms, or it's like Getty Images would be another example where photographers can put up all their images. There's like standard licensing in terms if you want to license that image off Getty and go do something commercial with it. And so that's kind of where we're hoping to get in the future with Researchhub is make it easy for anybody to commercialize science. And for people who are discovering these really cool things, they don't even have to meet the people. There could be like some company in India, in Europe, in Asia, trying to go build and commercialize cool things off their innovation or their breakthrough that they never even would have thought of. And they just have revenue streams coming in. So that's kind of like where we're hoping to get to in the future.
And just one anecdote. When I started my PhD in microbiology, I was working in a synthetic biology lab, and between 50 to 70% of any invention that was created from that lab, the IP would be assigned to the university. So the PI, would have less than 50% of the equity value of any innovation they created. And then as a grad student, the first thing they do before they even let you in the lab is they make you sign an IP assignment agreement where you receive 0% equity, and you're kind of at the whims of your PI.
It's like 1990s record labels with the artists. That kind of one-sided.
It's crazy.
That's like indentured servitude, if we're being honest. You come, we teach, you're going to pay us to allow you to use all the services, and then any results that come from it, any results from your research, from your undergrads, or even your grad student research, is all ours. So go pound sand if you don't like it. Researchhub is truthfully changing the game here. It is the leader in this industry right now as far as decentralized publishing, and they have a lot of advantages. Not only can you see all of the publishing, not only is it easy to get rid of that paywall, so you no longer have to pay to publish your research or pay to view the research. You can also see what's going on behind the scenes when it comes to that peer review. And it's changing the incentivization model for researchers so that they actually get paid for some of the work that they're doing. Researchers are drastically underpaid, even in the event that they come up with a breakthrough that is super, super profitable. It also enables something known as retroactive funding, which is when you get paid for contributions that you made to research a long time ago. So this is a decentralized open source network of how many people have contributed to it. So if you peer review something that later goes to be a foundational framework for medicine down the line a little bit, that nobody knew it was going to have that breakthrough, but eventually it had that breakthrough, you could actually get paid for that because it's documented on the blockchain that you contributed to that research. Because in a video that we made not that long ago, we talked about how it's very difficult to predict what is going to be super profitable in the future, but it's very easy to see what has been super profitable and move backwards to see who was involved in it. This allows for stuff like that. You can go trace everything backwards. They need, essentially, you can think about it like this, and this is where we'll end off on. And if you've enjoyed this video, please make sure to hit that like button. I'll put all the links in the description so you can go check out this stuff on your own and watch the entire interview, which I really encourage you to go do that because there's a lot of information here. Science, the way most of the websites look like right now, the way most of the science is uploaded and kept on track online, it looks like it's still on floppy disks. It looks like it hasn't been updated since we first came out with the internet. They've really not been able to keep up with the times, so they're skipping over all of the last decade or two of advancements and going straight to Web 3, which I'm super bullish on. I know you're super bullish on it. That's why you're watching this video. Time's your most valuable asset, so hopefully this was worth investing it into. I'll see you guys in the next video.